Hello, thank you for stopping by the channel. For this video I'm looking at Karnov for the NES, developed by Data East and released back in 1987. Karnov is a side-scrolling platformer that was released to arcades and a few different consoles, I think the same year. I believe there's a Commodore 64 version out there, which is something I'm certainly going to have to check out. A friend of mine actually had this cartridge when I was a kid, and we used to play this one all the time. Honestly, I kind of feel like I'm better at this game now than I was back then, and it's been over 20 years. When I finally popped this one in again, I got to the 4th or 5th stage reasonably easy. It seems that if you're a little cautious with this game and really get on top of that fire button, it's not that hard, at least in the early stages. I was also super happy to find myself a really clean copy of the game. It's got a great looking label, and I also managed to get a manual for this one too, which is very neat. Personally, I keep my copy in one of those old Nintendo rental cases you used to get from video stores because I'm kind of a nerd and a fan. In this game, you play the character of Karnov. Go figure. You're a beefy Russian strongman without a shirt, and you can breathe fire. That's your offense here. You spit fireballs. Unless you're crouching, and then it kind of doesn't really look like you're spitting fireballs. Kind of looks like you're launching them from your shoulder or your bicep, maybe. I don't know, it's a little unfortunate animation, I think. Looks a little odd to me, but you get used to it. Your mission here is to traverse the countryside and make your way past various monsters to find the lost treasure of Babylon. Okay, that's a good enough reason as any, I suppose, to fight monsters. You start the game with 3 lives, and if you get hit by the enemy, you turn from red to blue. If you get hit when you're blue, you lose a life. Now, when you're red, if you find and pick up an orb, you can go from shooting 1 fireball to shooting 2 fireballs, which is great. You find another one, and you can go up to shoot 3 fireballs at once, which is super useful, and a great reason to work extra hard to not take damage, because shooting 3 fireballs at one time really helps out. I encourage it. There are also 10 different icon options that you can collect through the various levels, and although they're a little clunky to use, they can be useful. There's this little meter at the bottom of the screen, and it shows you all these different icons that you've collected so far. As you walk around, the directional pad controls how you move your avatar, but it also moves the selection of the option list at the same time. When you have an option selected that you want to use, you press the select button and you enable it. There are a bunch of different options here, and they're nice to have for sure. I think the most important is probably the ladder. When it appears, you can climb it to the top, and you can grab other icons that are out of your grasp, or use it to get a better aim at enemies. Very useful. Some of the items have very specific implementations though, like the shield. It's clearly designed for you to fight and defeat one specific level boss. Besides that, I haven't had much use for it. You can also get bombs, wings, a boomerang, boots, glasses. There's a swimming mask and some sort of a screen clearing explosion. There are also a bunch of these K icons kicking around, and if you collect 50 of them, you're going to get an extra life. Now, this whole option menu concept is great and all, but it isn't the easiest thing to navigate and utilize, because you're always trying to walk around and dodge things, so selecting an option at the same time, it's a bit of a bother. I mean, after a while, it makes sense enough, and you can manage it okay, but it's really not the best implementation. Still, this was the NES, and I know they were breaking a lot of new ground with the system back then. They didn't have a ton of extra buttons kicking around, and they didn't have a lot of examples to follow, so I guess they did what they could. I think the level variety is pretty decent overall. Levels are going to move from left to right, and you can travel a bit up and down in different areas, and you do get some slightly different path options if you're interested. You're going to find some icons are going to be out of view, and you don't know they're there unless you start searching for them. And there are also going to be some decent terrain changes along the way, so visually, it's interesting. They keep you guessing. There are also some more in-depth changes as you get to certain levels, like there's an underwater level, which has different swimming animations, and there's also a sky level later on as well. I think it's a pretty nice variety, and there's also a pretty decent selection of enemies bumping around the different levels, so there's plenty of stuff for you to shoot. You get continues if you lose your lives, which is super nice to keep playing. And I believe it's actually something that the Famicom version of this game doesn't actually have. I did some searching online, and rumor is that that version is actually more difficult. I actually tracked down a video online, and for the most part it looks the same, although I was really surprised. They have cutscenes in between the levels. Like, there's a stable image and text explaining what the story is. I find that really strange. They stiffed us in the US. Wow. I guess they didn't want to translate a couple of these screens, and it's honestly kind of a bummer because it looks like they were telling a more detailed story. Kind of makes me want to track down the Famicom version, although I don't speak that language, so who knows. Still, we do get the excellent start and end to the different levels. Karnov comes cruising into the level on a lightning bolt. Tell me that's not a cool way to start the day. So I think overall Karnov is a pretty decent button masher for the console. Maybe it doesn't feel quite as polished as some of the games, but it's different enough, and it's definitely fun to play. And when I pick up an NES controller, that's kind of all I'm looking for. Some sort of brainless fun. Well, that's all I have today for Karnov for the NES. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and please feel free to like and subscribe if this is your sort of thing. And hope to catch you on another video.